Welcome to the Master's Correspondence Talk hosted by ACM, NITK, and IEEE NITK. Students who want an alternative to a regular Master of Science degree can pursue this course as a correspondence or distance program, which enables them to pursue a master's degree while working in their full-time job. Today's talk will shed light on such programs and cover the most common questions students face while pursuing correspondence masters. Our speakers for the day will be Gautam Ramakrishnan and Mahir Jain, both from the CS branch of the 2020 batch NITK. Gautam Ramakrishnan is currently placed at NVIDIA as a GPU architect. He did his correspondence masters from the University of Texas at Austin in computer science. Our next speaker, Mahir Jain, is currently placed at Walmart Global Tech as a software engineer. He is currently pursuing his correspondence masters from the Georgia Institute of Technology in computer science. It's an honor to have you both here, and we are excited to gain insights from your experience. Over to Gautam.
Hey, hi everyone. As mentioned in the introduction, I did my master's in UT Austin. So I'll probably tailor my part of the talk according to UT Austin. But many things would probably be common for a lot of online master's program. And please, um, my part of it will be very short. But please do ask questions in the Q&A session at the end of the session. So the first point I want to cover is why online masters. So to be honest, my case was a bit of a coincidence. I took an online masters. In my case, I applied during the COVID. I was the COVID batch 2020. So UT Austin was promoting the online masters and said, okay, I had applied to UT Austin through the on-campus program. They replied saying, "Well, we can't give you the on-campus one, but we'll give you the online one for sure if you apply for it with no registration fees." In my case, so for me, if I had to answer this question, like in 2020 when I joined the degree, I mean I wouldn't be putting a slide like this. But after completing my degree, now thinking about it, here is why I would recommend an online master's program. The first thing what I really liked about is the total cost for the degree was just $10,000. It is $1,000 per course, and you pay as you go. So if you take two courses that semester, you pay $2,000. I checked up the on-campus tuition, and it is 45. It was showing like 23K for like 2 semesters, and on average, if you take 4 semesters, you'll end up paying 45,000 for tuition alone, and that doesn't account for the cost of living, etc. So it reduces the financial burden. That is something which was really tempting for me personally. The next thing is you just need to complete 10 courses. That was the stream I had taken. Um, they generally recommend 1.5 to 3 years, so I put it within a span of 3 years. But I think you can even take a bit longer than 3 years. So no need to rush it too much. Take it at your convenience. Yeah, you get to work alongside. So I did not have to quit my job at Nvidia. I mean, rather I did not have to. I could start my first job at Nvidia while doing my master at the same time. So I gained a lot of valuable professional experience. If I had gone to the US, I would have probably just started working this year in May or June. But now, since I did my master's alongside my work, I have like 2.5 years of experience plus a master's degree. That was really enticing at that point of time. Um, the degree certificate is exactly same as the on-campus one, and I have verified this. I got my degree also, and it doesn't say online anywhere. And yeah, the last point about UT Austin is that it has TA option as well as research options. These came up in the middle of my study, so I don't have too much details about it. So the TA option basically allows you to be a TA in the online master's degree in courses which you have already taken and gotten an A grade. But I don't know anything about the stipend or how easy or hard it is to get. They basically look at your past semesters academic credentials. They'll probably only offer it to you once you've completed a year or something like that. Research options also came out. I don't think there is an RA which you will receive, but what I mean to say is instead of completing 10 courses, like I mentioned in point two, you could possibly finish like 7 courses and 2 research courses. So that is another way of doing it, and you get to write a small thesis as a part of it. But again, I don't have too much information. You'll have to go to the brochure from the website. Moving on, the application process, um, it is almost the same as the on-campus version. Letters of recommendation are optional, not compulsory. GRE is optional, but TOEFL is compulsory. You require an SOP and a CV. I would say it is less competitive than the on-campus version because I think at one point you could, I mean, a year ago they would have had at least 1,000 students at once, whereas the on-campus version barely has anyone at one at a single point of time. So it is less competitive in terms of entry, but it's not necessarily easier to finish the degree. So you need to keep that in mind. I guess the slides will be shared. So please look at this link here. It will give you a good list of documents which you'll need in advance. That is, it'll tell you exactly what you need. Like for example, the LORs, SOPs. I just taken this information from that. Uh, why UT Austin? I mean, as I said, my rationale was a bit different, but now thinking back, um, it is ranked 9 nationally for computer science, so it is in the top 10. I mean, exceptional alumni base, extremely good professors. This particular degree has 16 courses available to be picked and covers a variety of domains. So I would recommend you to go to the course list over here, but covers a wide enough spread in systems, theory, as well as for the third category, systems theory and I think applications. So it has a wide range of courses, and it has uh, the courses themselves are very well structured. Finally, I'll move on to my experience. So my experience was a bit rushed in the sense I started during COVID, and at that point of time, there was not much to do. So I would take 2 or 3 courses every semester. So that required around 15 to 20 hours a week with 2 courses per semester. I took one course in summer. Of course, it could vary for different people. For example, if you start doing it after a break, like what I mean by break is if you finish your BTech, then you start working and then start later on, it could be a bit more hectic because you have a lot more work and you have to do a master's. My experience was I started master's and my first job at the same time. So I was ramping up at work, so it wasn't too hectic at office, and I was able to do 2 courses per semester easily. Um, uh, I also focus on how classes are taken or the courses are conducted. Lectures are posted on EDX for UT Austin. Piazza is used for discussions, and Canvas is mostly used for assignments and exams. Uh, at times, some courses do use EDX for assignments and exams as well, but it's just these 3 platforms which is mostly used. And of course, some exams do have proctoring, some do not have. But the point is, they take it very seriously. So, as I mentioned in the last point, assignment quality is very high. You cannot cheat like in BTech. Like you cannot, mess around. They do check for they do check whether you have copied or not, and people have gotten in trouble. And at the same time, exams also are generally the quality is pretty good, but they generally make it open book. Very few courses have a closed book exam, and they seem to correct very leniently. They don't try to focus on too many nitty gritties. As long as you've understood the concept, you're at least partially marked quite well. So if the question is out of 5 marks and if you demonstrate that you've understood the concept, you end up getting at least 3. You don't end up getting a 1 or 2 per question. Unless you absolutely know nothing, only then you end up getting poor marks in the exams. That was my experience. Continuing with my experience, yeah. What I really liked, what I learned is that got good understanding of concepts in OS, virtualization, ML, and DL. I would say these 4 are ones I enjoyed the most in understanding. There's also quantum computing. Of course, I don't use it much, but it was worthwhile understanding that course. And I think quantum computing could be specialized to UT Austin's degree. I'm not sure if the other colleges provide that as of now, but we need to re-verify. So I would say the course content was excellent, really good assignments. For example, in OS and virtualization, you're given a dummy. In the OS course, you're given a dummy OS. You'll have to build up on, say, memory management systems, etc. In virtualization, the goal of your final project is to run an OS in a virtual machine. I mean, as a virtual machine on a hypervisor. So the point is to build a hypervisor which provides certain features. So very practical assignments. And even ML and DL had very good assignments. In DL, our final project was to make a bot, which it's like this Rocket League kind of game, a simplified version of it, where you're given you're given like the car's view, and you have to score goals. So difficult assignments, but um, it's worth it. Like you'll feel happy after doing it. Um, Outside of the studies and work, yeah, life could get a bit dull because you spend like uh, you spend weekends watching lectures, doing assignments. Even weekdays, evenings go in the same thing. So you spend a lot of time on it. But if you're willing to take it seriously, yeah, it is a great experience. You learn a lot, and if you take the right course, it could help you very well professionally as well. So that's that's it for my part. Please do ask questions in the Q&A session after Mahir completes. Thank you.
That was a very informative talk, Gautam. Now I'd like to invite our second speaker, Mahir, to enlighten us.
Thanks, and great presentation, Gautam. Just give me a second while I share. All right, let me know when you can see. Can you guys see my presentation? Okay, thanks for that. All right, so hi guys, thanks IEEE and ACM for setting this up and giving us a chance to speak on it. So as you can see, today I'll be talking about my journey so far with OMSCS. I haven't yet graduated. So yeah, I just thought I'll give a little bit more context about me. I think the introduction covered that I was a graduate from NITK CSE batch of 2020. I was actually an executive member at IEEE, so it feels nice to come back and attend one of these events. And yeah, I'm currently working as a software engineer at Walmart Global Tech India. So I started right after I graduated, and I'm still working there today. And yeah, currently pursuing my online MS and CS from Georgia Tech, and I started in the spring term this year, so January 2022. So yeah, just a few fun things about me. I'm an avid sports fan. It's a good thing this meeting was at noon today because I was watching Netherlands Argentina till late yesterday. Yeah, I like to read. During the pandemic, I got some time to try out blogging and podcasting and stuff like that. So those are some interesting things about me. Let's move on. So yeah, I guess Gautam's already covered some really nice points, which would be in common with what I might say here in terms of, a natural question today might be, what might make me consider an online master's degree? So the most obvious reason that comes to mind is that you want to do it because you want to work alongside pursuing a master's degree. That's the most obvious reason, but the subtleties, behind that reason might vary from person to person. So in my case, coming into final year, I mean, naturally, everyone has a decision to make. Do you want to pursue a master's right after work? Do you want to work, or you want to work for a bit and then do a master's? And that was the option that I was leaning towards. I had no idea that there's a concept called correspondence masters that's available to me. So after college, I decided to work because I was more inclined towards working in the industry rather than pursuing something research oriented. So, and I ruled out a PhD because I was sure I didn't want to do hardcore research for a long amount of time. And eventually, once I started working, I think 7 or 8 months in, I thought, okay, the work is interesting. I'm liking my project and everything, but I want to have a chance to further my knowledge. Maybe again have a bit more breadth as well as depth. And sometimes at work, you feel like you're stagnating a little bit, or the scope to learn isn't as much as you want it to be. So that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe I need to do a master's now. And then I stumbled upon the idea that an online master's is also possible. And For someone like me, I was always more interested in working, let's say, in the tech industry rather than doing a research. So I found this option to be, quite an attractive option in terms of it's solving my purpose. I don't need to uh, necessarily do a thesis or head towards a PhD or go deep into the world of academia, but I can get a taste of it and then try to apply it at what I'm doing at work, and that was my main motivation. And then I guess for other people, like if I'm talking in a generic sense, it could be financial reasons because. Like Gautam mentioned, the on-campus programs they tend to be really, really expensive at times. People have to take loans. There's a huge student loan problem as well, especially in the US, stuff like that. So people's reasons could vary. Maybe to make good on that investment as well, you have to stay abroad for a long amount of time. Maybe you don't want to do that. You might have your reasons to not shift abroad or whatever. So those could be some other reasons that people might have. And in my case, I guess the main motivation was I'm enjoying my work. I just need to supplement that with some learning and get avenues to explore. And I'll kind of touch upon how it's different than just doing, like, let's say, the massive online open courses like MOOCs or stuff from Coursera, etc. Why it's a little bit different than that. So those are the things that might make you consider an online master's degree. So, what to expect and what not to expect when it comes to comparing an online program and an on-campus master's degree? I guess it's pretty obvious. You can't expect a close interaction with your peers in terms of you won't have exactly a proper classroom atmosphere, or even the teacher-student ratio will not be as let's say there'll be a lot more students mapping to one teacher in online program, obviously. So those sort of things are pretty much natural to expect. But like Gautam mentioned, all the top programs, you can expect the same curriculum. You're doing the same coursework as your, peers on campus. You can expect same professors, same faculty. There's no difference there. Same degree, and you can expect it to be as intense. Like again, that's what kind of separates it from just doing certifications or anything of that sort. It is at the end of the day a serious degree. It requires a lot of effort put in, but which is equally very rewarding as well. So, and yeah, I think from a research point of view, my personal take on it is if you want to do research, the best experience would be on campus. Like opportunities from what I've seen are a little bit limited. Maybe, times are changing. These programs might get better at it later on. But I think as it stands today, if you really want to do research, you need to have good, interaction with your professor, maybe working in a lab or something of that sort. Then probably going on campus is definitely a better option. But if you're looking to just further your learning or further your career prospects in the industry, then that's where the online masters can really come into play. All right. Yeah, a bit of a meme here, like application tips. I really couldn't think of too much different from your typical MS application process. So the tip that I've written here is more coming from the perspective of when you're working. So what I found that really helped is you should start early because you'll need time on the weekends, or generally when you're in a college atmosphere already or you're already a student, you have a lot of other students around you. It's easier to apply faster or do all your groundwork quickly and get your applications done quickly. But I needed to really give myself, like, I started thinking about this applying to these programs in around April of 2021 or May, and my deadlines were coming up later on in the year, August or even December in some cases. So that's how much time I had to give. And part of the reason is, especially if you're working, you need to reconnect with your professors. So yeah, like I've said here, don't make an enemy of them. You need to have good ties with your professors after you graduate, so that when you get in touch with them, they can still give you a letter of recommendation, which will be heartfelt, let's say, in a way. And yeah, it's really important to read the fine print with all. There's so many like different applications you might have, right? You're trying to shortlist colleges. What are the requirements in each one of them? There might be some subtleties there, things that you might need to take care of. So I'd say that's typical advice for an MS application. And of course, the typical requirements I've written down below. It's TOEFL or IELTS for your English requirement, and then LORs, SOPs. Some of them may not require a letter of recommendation. Again, it becomes college specific, but quite a few of them do as well. SOP, resume, transcripts, and GRE. I've seen it varies quite a bit from university to university. So maybe it's a better idea to shortlist first, figure out if you really need to give it, and then decide. So those are some tips I could think of from an application point of view, specific to correspondence master's program. So common questions, some of them I think might have already been addressed, but I've just jotted down 3 or 4 here. Like, is the degree the same as the one on campus? Yes, all the programs all the well-reputed programs when it comes to an online degree will give you the same exact same degree. In terms of how long the timeline it takes to graduate, I think if you're working, typically it will take you between 2 to 3 years, and I plan on finishing it in roughly 2 years to almost 2.5 years, because that sort of pace helps you manage if your workload is a little bit high at work as well. Do recruiters value it? I think at junior levels it may not matter as much. I'm sure there'll be arguments that you just need to ace your coding interview and pretty much everything else is taken care of. But later on in your career, having a master's degree definitely helps. It might open up avenues for you sooner than not having it. And also, like Gautam mentioned, I think it's a great plus that you get to work and build work experience, and then also at the same time do a master's degree. So it's kind of, you're speeding up your access to opportunities in a way. And as for getting a job in a foreign country, that's unfortunately not something that's too likely if you're doing a correspondence master's. It's purely because, I mean, it's in the sense that you can do it in a normal way. It's not like the master's degree will make a difference. You still need to apply to a company that's willing to sponsor a visa, like, which is kind of hard to do when you're, let's say I'm applying for a job in the US. It's hard to get that sponsorship from the visa sitting in India. So those typical problems still apply. But I'll come to something which is a little bit, as far as I know, unique to the Georgia Tech program that might help you with this aspect as well. So I'll come to that later on in the presentation. Um, yeah, some of my learnings from my experiences thus far, I'm coming up to roughly 1 year in now. So definitely you need a strong support system. Like Gautam mentioned, you're going to be sacrificing your social life a little bit. So you need to lean on your family and friends. Make sure you're getting your time off and balance things out. Otherwise, can easily get burnt out, and you can really pace yourself out as well. I mean, there's no need to like really rush things. And then something I've seen is there will be other students, especially if you're living in a bit of a hub, like a city like Bangalore. You will find other like-minded people, or you're called, like in our case, we have a Slack channel where students can connect. So you actually have an opportunity to meet people who are experiencing similar things to you, and that helps as well. So there's a nice community that's building up to help you kind of compensate for that loss of in-person classroom experience, meeting your peers, etc. And yeah, support from workplace is really important. I think in my case as well, like when you have a busy stretch coming in, maybe you have exams or something of that sort, you really need to take some time off, or you should have a good relationship with your supervisor, your manager at work. And having the support, sometimes it makes a huge difference. It takes the pressure off you and just helps you manage both work and the masters. The second big learning for me was to go beyond the grades mindset. There are some very challenging courses where actually getting a grade is hard. A good grade is hard, but sometimes you'll find there are courses where you can kind of coast through them. And if you're focusing on, basically you can kind of get your way to a grade somehow by hook or by crook. But and I think sometimes when you're grown up in a competitive atmosphere, that's a tendency that people tend to have. But here there's no compulsion. Like at the end of the day, you're just trying to further your knowledge. It sounds cheesy, but that really is what most people are doing at a master's level. So it takes some time to shed that mindset, but what I've realized, it is very, very rewarding when you try to go the extra mile on some of these assignments, because I've had a similar experience as well, where some of the assignments or projects are really well crafted, and sometimes they'll give you extra credit, or ask you, if you have the time, you can try this as well. And trying those things actually turns out to be the most interesting. So that's another thing which I feel like was a good learning for me so far. And finally, I guess, coming to just explore, like, of course, you have the option to specialize some of these programs. Like, speaking from a Georgia Tech perspective, you have like computing systems, machine learning, or robotics, and a bunch of specializations. But you still have the opportunity to take a few electives and try things that you might never try. So, for instance, I plan on taking a video game design course soon. I think it'll combine some really unique aspects that I've not gotten to see anywhere else so far. So stuff like that is it's a unique opportunity, especially when you look at foreign institutions, because Indian institutions, you might not see this sort of stuff in the curriculum or in the syllabus. So that's definitely an opportunity for you to explore. Like, you can always have a breadth of subjects and go deep in a few of them, but it doesn't hurt to explore a little bit. Coming to why OMSCS at Georgia Tech, so the online MS and CS at Georgia Tech, it is an established program. Like, when I was doing my groundwork and shortlisting colleges, I had Georgia Tech in there. I had UT Austin, UIUC, USC. Those are just a few of the names of the universities I was looking at. Ultimately, I found that this program, it's been there for a long time. Like, I could kind of I could see a lot of testimonials, etc., online, like people's blogs, detailed blogs from the time of application till graduation, stuff like that. So I think that made a big difference. I could see what people's experiences were like and how they've continuously improved the program, because it's something that's been there for a while. It's now got a good reputation as well. It's I mean, one of the top ranked universities in the world for its computer science program as well. And I think one of the most important factors as well was the affordability. So all the online programs will naturally be cheaper, but genuinely speaking, I think the OMSCS from Georgia Tech is extremely affordable. I think it's uh, in the range of maybe they've even actually reduced the tuition fees recently, so it's maybe 5 to 6 lakhs in Indian rupees and the equivalent in US dollars for the entire program, which is pretty amazing. It's I haven't mentioned it here, but it's again the same. You need to do 10 courses, like just 3 credits each and 30 credits. And yeah, I guess another really good thing is that they're very considerate of your time zone. Like these are the sort of things that they've got, figured out in terms of you'll never see that you'll have some sort of an attendance requirement or you need to attend something live mandatorily. It's always optional. If you can make it to like a live doubt solving session or an office hour session from a professor, then that's something you can attend. But if they're very considerate of your time zone, so you can easily manage, stuff like that. Uh, yeah, I think I've covered pretty much all the points here. And the last one is the bonus point I was kind of referring to before as well. This ties into the placement opportunity. You can actually transfer to the on-campus program from the OMSCS. There are a few prerequisites you need to meet, and there's no guarantee as well. They make that quite clear. But for instance, maybe 4 or 5 courses in, if you have a good academic record, you can like mail your student advisor and ask them if I can transfer to on-campus. And once you're there, obviously, then I would say just think of it as you're in the same boat as any on-campus student. So the same placement process, etc., which they have, you kind of fall into that boat, and then your placement opportunities come by. So it's not possible if you're doing it like remotely. You need to at least be residing in the US. So there are a few people who take this program who are in the US but just not on campus. And something which I've not mentioned here in terms of TA opportunities, etc. at Georgia Tech. Unfortunately, I think being a TA, there's a residency restriction. So you need to be a resident in the United States to be able to be a TA. So there are opportunities. There is a certain stipend that they give out as well, but it's not accessible to people who are living outside the US. So that's just something I thought I'll mention. Um, yeah, I think from presentation point of view, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. I think it'll be better if we have the Q&A, and yeah, I'll share this PPT across. You can find different ways to reach out to me. So yeah, I think we can probably move on to the Q&A.
Sure, Mahir. It's been great talking to you both, and like the insights you've given us are amazing. But we do have a few questions for you. So, moving on to the questions. The first question is: does the online master's degree accelerate your career trajectory within your company? So, like moving between software engineer levels faster than you would otherwise, for instance.
Okay, I could start on that maybe. So yes, within your organization for sure, and I think probably there more so than rather than switching organizations, because if your manager knows, they know your track record, like you've been working with them, they'll have a good idea of the value that it's bringing to the team as well. They can see your knowledge, like grow, and then how you apply that to your work as well. So it won't necessarily speed it up like a lot, but it can open up the conversations for, let's say, a promotion or something a little bit sooner, because you're getting an MS and you're building lateral experience at the same time. So let's say you did an MS for which is the equivalent of 2 years of work, and then you did 2 years of work. An ordinary person would need 4 years of work to get to the same point or be considered at a roughly same point. So within an organization, for sure, it can make a difference. Of course, it will depend on the culture within the company, but I think it really improves your chances considerably.
From my perspective, it's more for the future. Probably it hasn't really helped with my current situation as of now. But I'm just banking on the fact that if later on in the future we have roles where you need a master's, or if I were to switch jobs and it were a critical requirement, it would help a lot. That was more of the rationale for me say. But for me personally, it didn't help at all as of now.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, at the junior levels, generally it would be harder because I think I mentioned this before as well. That it's the culture is like you crack your coding interview and pretty much they're not looking at too much else apart from that. But like Gautam said, the more senior your level is, like there might be some avenues which only open up when you have a master's or a PhD. I've seen that happen. So in those cases, it helps. It helps having the degree for sure.
Or applying to a new job also at a more
Yeah,
senior level, it looks better on your resume that you have an extra degree.
yeah,
That
exactly.
is that that
Yeah.
is a that's the point here.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure like it adds the long term. It creates the long term difference. Moving on to the next question. What are your plans post finishing the MS degree? Are you looking to switch companies or geographies?
I'll start with this one. I finished my MS, but the first thing I did was probably take up more work at office because to account for the fact that I was doing lesser before. But as such, I have no plans of changing or anything like that. And one more useful thing to know is ask your company if they're willing to fund something like this. NVIDIA had a program called GEAP, which paid up to 2 lakhs per year. So that covered up to, say, probably at least 60 to 75% of my tuition. So my degree would have come to around 8 lakhs and I would have paid around 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs at most for it because the company was sponsoring 2 lakhs every year.
Yeah, and similar for me actually. I didn't know that as well. I mean, at Walmart as well, they have a program. It's 2 lakhs per year, same thing. So almost my entire fees is getting covered.
That's amazing. And like also, I think you both have answered this, but someone has asked, how significant is the economic advantage of correspondence over regular masters? Is the tuition fee the only required fee, or do you have like after your experience, have you faced any other costs that you've incurred?
The only other cost I incurred is a late registration fee for my semester, and that is because I didn't get my degree from like NITK yet. So I couldn't apply on time for one of the
Oh,
semesters.
you still haven't got it.
No, no, this was in 2021, so that was. I mean, because of COVID,
Yeah, yeah.
all that nonsense happened. So that was like a $25 fine, and other than that, yeah, I would have spent less than, I would have spent $10,000 plus less than $100 about that, I guess.
Yeah,
So
pretty much same. I think I mean, the fee breakdown has tuition fee and a couple of other special fees which are like marginal, but that's it. You're paying for the program and not.
And okay, the next question is, what was your profile like when you applied for a master's? So, for example, CGPA, internships, anything else that you think made a significant difference? And how important was each aspect of the application? So, like you all mentioned that you need SOPs, you need LORs, but like, what is the weightage? What is the most important thing?
Yeah, I guess I think Gautam alluded to this. Like when it comes to a CGPA requirement or whatever, I mean, they take a lot of people who are not CA students as well. The intake is a lot more. The challenge isn't so much getting in; it's completing and getting out. That's the challenge with the correspondence degree because you're balancing a lot of things. It's hectic. A lot of people drop out. The dropout rate is actually much higher than a non-campus program. So I would say, I mean, you could be 7.5, you could be 9.5. In an online program, it may not make as much of a difference. I think what they will look at is you've done your prerequisites. So for people, like most people who are applying will be CS or IT graduates. So that kind of satisfies that requirement in the first place. And for people who don't have that, you might need to show proof that you've picked up some basic CS skills because at the end of the day, it's a graduate CS program. You need to have that in place. And arguably, the SOP and LORs are, I would say, more important. Like LORs for sure will hold a lot of weight. People can back up the work you've done, and SOP for sure, just like an on-campus program, it makes a huge difference.
for UT Austin, LOR is optional, but SOP will hold quite a lot of weight. Probably just to explain why you want to. I mean, you just have to convince them why you want to be a part of the degree. Like it has to be reasonable enough. You just can't. You need to give some rationale behind why you're going to study.
Right, and anything you think like your internships made a difference. So, for example, a lot of our viewers would not be from the CS background. So, like, do you think if they're not from the CS branch, so having an internship uh, at a software company or things like that would be necessary for them at least?
I really doubt it. One more point to note is that your point could be right because a lot of people apply when they are well established in their careers, and even if they don't have a CS educational background, if they work in a software company or a hardware company, they have already built up their experience. So for them, putting that in their SOPs makes it easier for them because The university knows they're working on that field. But for someone starting from scratch, probably mentioning internship would be a good way to start. Because if you don't have, or at least if you have a minor in computer science or IT, that should be sufficient, I feel. But if you're coming from a totally unrelated branch, at least show that you have taken some courses which correspond to, which could help you in the future. At least if you have taken algorithms course or something, or something like electronic design course. So back it up with whatever you've done in college, which could be relevant. Internship if possible, at least a minor. Yeah, for someone who's going to start this degree right after BTech and not in CS or IT could be a bit difficult, I guess. But yeah, just prove whatever you can.
All right, then moving on to the next question. What all programs did you apply for? Was it just correspondence masters?
Mahir,
Um,
you want to start with that? Yeah.
yeah, I can go ahead. So yeah, I think I mentioned I had managed to narrow it down to a few of the like when I applied only to correspondence, yes, because I started when I was already working. So in my situation, I made up my mind that okay, this seems like something that fits what I want. So yes, applied only to them, and I had Georgia Tech, UT Austin, UIUC, USC were the four main ones I was looking at in terms of all the factors I was considering. I think there were a couple, like one at Boston University or even Stanford was there, but I felt Stanford was quite pricey, at least at the time. So didn't even think of applying. Didn't make sense. Yeah.
Um, my situation is totally different. I did not even consider correspondence degree. I'd applied to the on-campus versions in 2019 fall for 2020 fall, and I applied like 10 colleges probably, and UT Austin replied with rejection on campus. We will guarantee you the online degree. Like they said, no need to apply again. Just link your on-campus application in the next application cycle, and no registration fees, nothing. You're set.
Wow, that's great. And so, like both of you mentioned that you had a list of colleges that you wanted to apply for. So, what were your criteria for choosing these colleges?
My case, probably top 20. Reasonable fees. I was looking more for public, and I'd taken like probably Stanford in private. Um,
Yeah.
Good location as well for jobs in the future. Those are the main criteria.
Yeah, I think in my case, a little bit different in the sense of what I was thinking about. Cost, obviously, being a common factor, and reputation, 100%. I mean, needs to be. I mean, I thought it's worth doing if the ranking or the degree will hold a little bit more weight. Aside from that, a couple of them which I had to rule out were because of things like in the application process, or I found out that it's not as asynchronous as it should be for, let's say, a distance program. You might have some requirements where you need to attend live sessions or you need to go to an exam center to give exams. It just felt like a lot of constraints that might come into picture. So stuff like that as well. So that's why I think doing that groundwork on what a degree looks like, especially if you can get some testimonials, it really helps. Like you can find out all stuff like this which you might ignore otherwise.
Got
So
it.
just one
Uh,
follow up to that. Like when you mentioned top 20 colleges, like where are you looking at these from? Like are there any reputed
This was
sources you
in
look
this was in the US, just general rankings which come up on the internet. This was like a long time back, so when I'm kind of out of touch. But US and some in Europe. But mine was a different case altogether. I was looking at on campus, not correspondence. So I was just giving a more general guideline in that direction rather than
at? Right.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
something which I can mention here is US. I was also looking mostly at US. I think there were a few options in the UK, but India. I mean, there is. It's not like I mean, there isn't. Some of them are coming up with it. I know IISc has one. I know a couple of people who are doing something like that from there. So that might be another one that people might want to consider. I didn't know at the time, but yeah, IISc also has something, and that might be a little bit more research oriented as well, which is something that some of these US ones miss out on. So that's another one.
right. And the next question is any plans for higher studies after this? So I think you have answered this, but what I'd like to ask is since I think in college everyone has the coding background, right? Software engineering is coding for students here, but since you have done a master's and you've got to know about things deeper on the research level, did you feel like at any point did you feel like doing going for higher studies for a PhD maybe would be a good idea since you're learning so much?
At this point, for me, it depends on my work. Tasks can be a bit research oriented, so it's a solid R&D role. So if I feel like if I need a PhD to move on to better positions in the future, I might have to do it, but otherwise, not really.
Yeah, I guess in my case, I didn't have the sort of. I mean, I knew it takes a lot of drive to commit to a PhD. You need to kind of be sure that you want to commit to it for that long, and I didn't feel like I could do that, so I ruled out a PhD. I don't think I'll be pursuing anything beyond this.
But personally, even in my company, roles which require a PhD are very few, and it's stuck with like NVIDIA research. So even in roles which look very enticing and interesting to me, most of them don't have a PhD. It's just a like a bachelor's or not even master's necessarily. So yeah, I think we can get away with the PhD nowadays. It's probably not as critical, but depends. You have to do your research if you want to.
Yeah,
You need to figure out what is a PhD required for what you want to do,
correct,
and
correct.
do it according to it.
Right. And coming to our last question, which is a little like not based on research, it's how well should we know coding for a decent job and how software jobs actually work? So, since you both have the experience, if you could guide us about the same.
Yeah,
Mahir, you
so
start. Yeah.
yeah, so on this one, I think for me, I had a huge, journey with this whole topic because initially I used to get frustrated in terms of, they take all these, let's say, DSA questions. It's not really mapping to the job well, right? Or you have that limited perspective. So yes, you need to have good coding skills, no doubt about it. The industry requires it. I think pretty much everyone for a tech job will start off with, few rounds of DSA, especially. So your coding skills need to be good, your algorithm skills need to be good. After that, other topics might come in, your other core concepts. But when I was working, to be honest, it's not like you'd be using that on an everyday basis at every company. Maybe some of them require it a lot more. A lot of their work involves that. But some of them, frankly, you won't be using it as much. It's only later you realize when you're in a more senior position, when you need to start thinking of things yourself rather than, okay, let's do that. You're being told more what to do. You need to think of what to do in the first place. That's where having that knowledge really helps. You need to be able to think how it's going to be done rather than just doing it. So at a junior level, you may not see it. The common joke is like they take coding interviews, but you're just doing HTML. That's the common meme out there. But but no, it does make a difference later on. That I've seen that. So my perspective has changed in that sense. The more senior you get, the more important it becomes.
For me personally, it's totally different. I don't use anything, no DSA, nothing. In my role, it's more of are you able to understand concepts in hardware? Are you able to apply them? Do you see the big picture? And do you analyze data really well? That is what really helps me. It's a critical thinking where you're able to say, yeah, you have all this data. What is the next step? Like, how do you make your GPU better? That is the way we focus on things. We focus on finding problems in our architecture and then find the top end critical items which can be fixed in the next architecture, either in hardware. If software, can we deploy a driver fix right now? So in my particular role, I'm not involved in coding much. I just code up basic direct programs here and there, but it doesn't require any complicated algorithm skills. It just requires that you understand concepts really well and you can get away. And a lot of senior people don't code at all. They offload the coding work on more junior people like me, where we write small tests here and there, but
Yeah.
nothing complicated in the DSA point of view. I'm just mentioning this because there is more than just software where you can get placed, and I just want to give a bigger picture to what other kind of roles that are available. So when
Yep.
it comes to hardware, and like I'm not in the software division in NVIDIA, even though I was in computer science. If you work in hardware, it's solid data analysis. My work is perf analysis, and our point is why is our performance not up to the mark in certain areas? It's just critical thinking. You're just a master debugger after a point. So you need to inculcate those skills as well. So don't just focus on data structures and algorithms and programming. Programming is really important, but you need to learn how to look at data and see, find problems, and identify what has to be fixed.
Yeah, I think I'd agree a lot with that. A lot of times, like I said, you're not using DSA on an everyday basis. You need to figure out how to solve problems. Debugging is like, it becomes second nature after a point, even in a software profile. You need to figure out how you fix problems. And yeah, I think other concepts as well. It means sometimes, people get lured into the trap of just do DSA, DSA, DSA the whole time, and then it doesn't map well to the work you're doing. So maybe for people out there who are trying to get jobs now, I saw an example of a person brilliant at CP, etc. But when it came to doing the work, he didn't perform all that well, and then it doesn't translate into a PPO. Let's say if you're doing an internship and stuff like that, right? So there's a lot more to it. You need to kind of, if you want to do well in a software profile, you need to have a well-rounded knowledge. Like make sure your other concepts are strong as well. Maybe databases if your work involves that, or something with OS or networks and other core concepts as well. So there's a lot more to it than just doing data structures and algorithms. And yeah, on an everyday basis, absolutely, you will not be using your you won't find those. It's like when you learn maths when you're young, right? You have these outlandish problems which you're kind of learning the concepts. You might use it indirectly later somewhere in your life, but it's not like you're directly working with that sort of stuff every day. So, for instance, even in, let's say, from a Walmart perspective where I'm working, let's say you're in an e-commerce division, your problems are entirely different. You need to learn how to scale your systems, right? Stuff like that. So, system design and stuff is really important. So, those are other things which you should focus on as well. But for sure, I think someone at this age, DSA is important because it helps you get a foot into the door. You can look at it that way. Once your foot is in the door, then you need to have the other things to make it past the final, let's say, stage.
Like another piece of advice is understand what your company is doing and what is important for them. I realized that doing well in a simple project which is really important to people gave a lot more weightage than something more complicated that I've done. Like you come up with a very simple report out saying these are the problems in our GPU, which wouldn't have required so much of effort in coding up or analyzing very simple data, but you knew what to check for. You gave the right results, and then people are discussing it company wide. At least your whole org gets together and they're like, "Yeah, this data is really interesting." So you need to have good judgment as what is important for your company as well. So once you, I mean, yeah, be good at DSA, get the foothold into your company, but change your thinking after that. It's not going to be the same anymore.
100%.
That is really insightful, like getting both perspectives from the software as well as the hardware side, and how you both have managed to do so well. It's really inspiring for us. So I think that's the end of our question. Any like I think you both have given us the general advice as well that we needed, and it was really great to have you both here. Since you're an alumni, we can closely relate to your journey, and yeah, you've inspired us to follow along. And right, thank you so much for joining in. Uh, I think we'll end the talk. Anything else from like anyone else?
Unless anyone has other questions, probably that's the only. If anything came up later, we could answer
I think
those.
you've answered most of the questions. Uh, and yeah, we're good to go.
Cool. All right. Just want to thank you guys once again. Thanks for organizing this thing.
Thanks
It's
for that.
pretty crazy. I mean, it feels like only a few years ago I was attending one of these, and now it's like time has flown. We're on the other side of it now. So,
It was barely 3 years back, though, when we are not like that experienced yet.
yeah, but bro, it's gone by really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice to see ACM and IEEE working together. Good stuff.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think we'll end the meet